So, I left a poll in my community tab in which I asked you guys what game I should review next, Little Nightmares or Inside. And as you can see, Little Nightmares got more votes than Inside. And that makes a lot of sense because Little Nightmares 3 got revealed at Gamescom, which I think nobody expected, and it's going to come out next year. The timing couldn't be more perfect than this, so let's talk about the origins of this IP, starting with the original Little Nightmares. So Little Nightmares is a puzzle platform horror adventure game developed by Tarsier Studios and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment. The game started development in 2014 with the purpose of exploring wild extremes in childhood, and it was originally going to be called Hunger. That's kinda funny because if the whole franchise was just named Hunger, everyone would be like,
"Welcome.
Hi, do you have a copy of one of the Hunger Games?"
One moment, please.
Alright.
Here you go, stranger.
Thanks. Wait.
What?
This is a movie, mister.
Oh, my apologies, mate. Just 1 second.
Huh, people these days.
Here.
Wait, this is a book.
What the hell do you want from me, sir?
I asked for a copy of one of the Hunger Games.
Which is it, a book or a movie?
No, it's a video game.
Wait, they made a video game based on one of the movies?
Ah, forget it.
Hold up! Strangers these days.
When the game was first announced in 2015, Tarsier Studios didn't have any publisher to market the project, and I believe it was meant to be an exclusive for PlayStation 4. It wasn't until August 2016, when they confirmed that Bandai Namco will be the publisher of the game, they rebranded the game as Little Nightmares to avoid confusion with the Hunger Games movies, and they considered releasing the game on all platforms. Little Nightmares was finally released in 2017, and it received a lot of positive reception. And what made this game so successful? Let's find out. Let's talk about the gameplay first, shall we? Little Nightmares is a very simple game to play through, and it takes place in a 2.5 dimension world. It means that the whole game is 3D modeled, but it goes for a full 2D perspective. The only way to progress through the story is going either left or right. The game has everything that you would expect for a platforming experience: climbing, jumping, puzzles, obstacles, grabbing pieces, and approaching some unique threats that you either run or hide from. The first thing that made me really invested into this game is the art direction. Little Nightmares has a very Tim Burton-esque theme to it, and it creates a nightmarish yet oddly charming world that feels like a twisted fairy tale come to life. However, what really stands out is the pacing and the gameplay of this gem. The puzzles are so well and cleverly designed, they don't feel overly frustrating, and it requires a mix of timing and critical thinking to solve them. In this game, you play as a very small child named Six, who is stuck in this underwater resort named the Mall. Six is a female child who is wearing a raincoat, and she kinda looks like Coraline with this yellow coat. I wouldn't be surprised if they were inspired by that film. Six's main objective is to get out of this hellhole, and she has to avoid numerous threats on her way. And that's pretty much it. The plot of Little Nightmares is very simple and minimal to say the least. The game contains only 5 chapters in total, and the story is told by showing us what is happening on screen, rather than giving us any exposition. There is no dialogue throughout this entire game, and the only way to make sense out of this plot is through the locations and the actions of our characters. The game's minimalistic approach to storytelling encourages the player to piece together the story themselves, leaving room for interpretation and discussion long after the credits roll. But what made the players so invested in the story of Little Nightmares to begin with? Let's talk about it. Also, as always, spoiler alert. The game begins with a lady with a white mask slowly turning towards the camera, and then we cut off to our hero, Six, who slept in a suitcase. I need to point this out. All the children in the Little Nightmares world are like cat-sized, while the adults seem to have a normal size, with normal height. It is unclear why the children were portrayed that way, but it's all part of the lore nonetheless. Six is located in the depths of the mall, and she is now trying to reach the top of the resort. The first thing that you approach is these little beings called gnomes, just without a G. These things are like children with cone heads on their heads. They kinda look like Pyramid Head a little bit, and guess what? You can actually give them a hug. This is part of a collection in this game. you find these little kids in different places and you give them a hug, which affects the ending of this game. We'll cross that bridge later. There are more different collectible things in this game though, like finding these small statues of the lady that we saw at the beginning of the game and you just break them to pieces. You also approach lamps and candles that you can light up. Doing these things don't really do anything other than the purpose of earning a trophy or an achievement. Back to the story, 6 is on her way and the first threat that you encounter is these black leeches that will kill you instantly if you get near them. 6 avoids them and then this happens. As you can see, 6 has hunger problems and she has to eat immediately to avoid dying and get her energy back. This is how it's gonna play out throughout this adventure. 6 escapes from danger and she has to deal with her stomachache in like every 10 to 20 minutes. In this first event, 6 approaches a cafeteria nearby and there is this one kid sitting on a table. Just FYI, this kid will never appear again in the story, but they were nice enough to save 6 from starvation. Later in the game, you come across the real first threat of this game, the janitor. He is blind, he has small legs, he has long stretched arms, and he has very sensitive hearing. Along the way, you will learn that the janitor is kidnapping children, he wraps them up with sheet and attaches them on moving hooks. That's some disturbing shit right here, no pun intended. The janitor is the one that has the most screen time out of all the villains in this game. You hide from him, he kidnaps you, you run away from him, and you have a small boss fight in which you have to remove this cage in order to have the elevator door amputate his arms. 6 succeeds in doing that, and this is the conclusion of the janitor. I think it's safe to say that the janitor dies from blood loss, because both of his arms are cut off, and without them, he can't treat himself. So yeah, no chance for his survival. You move on to chapter 3 and 6 reaches the place where all the stuffed children were sent to. 6 has another starvation situation and instead of eating normal or rat food, she finds a rat trapped in a mouse trap and she eats it alive. Hunger is one thing, but eating something alive just gives me a bad sign if you ask me. I don't think eating a living rat is even healthy to begin with. Anyways, 6 reaches the kitchen of the mall and she meets up with the chef. I don't think this guy is as disturbing as the janitor, except for the fact that he's wearing a mask. I mean, look at him. Why is his face covered with skin mask with such an ugly expression? Well, beats me because that's what makes him so terrifying. 6 reaches the second floor where the chef's bedroom and bathroom is located. She first enters the bathroom and as you can see, this room has 2 toilets placed next to each other. What the hell? This is honestly disturbing me way more than the chef's mask, but we get to that in a second. 6 goes to the bedroom and you know what's worse than one evil chef? 2 evil chefs. The chef downstairs has a twin brother who was sleeping in their bed, and he has a mask with a smiling expression. So they're basically Tweedledee and Tweedledum. This just brings me back to my question. What the hell is the context of this bathroom? Do both of these guys have 2 butts? Or do they just take a dump together like brothers? What the hell am I doing with my life? The second chef wakes up and he goes on to do his chores. 6 has to avoid the twin chefs throughout this entire level and the chapter ends with 6 escaping from both of them as they watch her get away on a hook. The near end chapter of Little Nightmares begins with 6 climbing outside of the mall as we see a boat with guests crossing the bridge and getting into the mall. 6 reaches a restaurant where all the guests came in, they all wear masks, and we get our first weird glance at the woman that we saw at the very beginning. 6 goes through different rooms of the restaurant, avoiding these hungry bastards who are eating meat like a bunch of pigs, and we get the most intense chase of the entire game. 6 running away from guests who are crawling on the ground like crazy. For real though? Out of all the things that they ate in this restaurant, they think a living child is more delicious? Your guess is as good as mine. Anyways, 6 manages to escape these hungry buffoons, and her stomachache still kicks in. She approaches a gnome who is minding his own business, he notices 6 starving to death, and he shows his act of kindness by giving her a sausage to save her life. Holy shit! This entire moment shocked everyone who played this game. After all we had been through, we all connected with Six and thought she was just an innocent kid put in the wrong place, right until this moment. Out of absolutely nowhere, she throws the sausage away given by this gnome, she pins him down and eats him alive. This is why I used quotes for the hero word at the beginning of the story, because suddenly Six wasn't the most innocent living being of this place after all. She literally ate and killed this one gnome in cold blood, and throughout this game, these gnomes were harmless, and the only friends Six had in its entire resort. How could she do something like this? This is where the story started to get interesting, because we all wanted to know why Six would do something that no one could ever relate to. Unfortunately for people who want a true answer, it's only up to us to make our own conclusions for this plot point, and I'll save that for the end of the video. So Six mercilessly killed this gnome, and her next stop is the place where this mysterious lady was living. Six reaches her residence, and you can hear the lady humming in her room. Not gonna lie, I always stopped at this part just to listen to the humming. Six goes past the lady, and as you can see, while she's humming, she's looking at a mirror with no reflection. What is the explanation for this? We'll talk about it later. Six smashes her vase in her bedroom, but for some reason she's not coming. Six gets a key to move on to the next room, and the lady is chasing her through this hallway. Six gives her the slip, she finds a small mirror in a room, and you come across the lady as the final boss of the game. Having the lady look through the mirror does a lot of damage to her. This must have some sort of meaning to it, but we'll get to that later. Six succeeds in defeating the lady, and her stomachache kicks in for the very last time. You know what that means? Six has to eat the lady alive. I'm not sure if it was just me, but at this point, I wasn't rooting for Six anymore, and I didn't want to kill this woman. I mean, sure, she did do a lot of evil stuff in this resort, but Six wasn't any better as a person. She literally killed an innocent kid who was being nice to her. I didn't want her to win, but the game never lets the player make a different decision, because it's part of the design. So yeah, Six does what she gotta do. After putting the lady out of her misery, Six gains her powers, she walks towards the exit of the mall, and she sucks the soul out of each guest on her way. The game ends with Six walking up the stairs. All the gnomes that you hugged throughout this game will appear at this part, and the story goes to black. There is one post-credit scene, but it doesn't really say much. It shows Six standing on the surface of the mall with a message from the developer saying, "Thank you for playing." No, thank you for making this game. That was such a strange, yet one of the most captivating adventures I have ever experienced. But as always, we gotta talk about the extra content of this game. Why do I gotta talk about DLC expansions 3 times in a row? So in the later months after the release of Little Nightmares, the game came out with a trilogy of DLCs consisting of a story from a complete different perspective. You play as this kid with a flashlight in a blue shirt called the Runaway Kid, and you go through the same events as the base game through his point of view, meaning that you go in different directions, you encounter new threats, you solve new puzzles, and you get answers to some unanswered questions from the main game. Let's talk about the identity of each chapter and what new things they offer. The first DLC, The Depths, starts with the runaway kid sleeping in the room where you met the janitor for the first time as Six. He comes across a girl who is running away. He is trying to catch up with her, but she leaves her flashlight behind and disappears for the rest of the game. The runaway kid goes through the sewers, which is home to Granny. No, not this Granny, this one. This old woman is the villain of this chapter, and she gets killed at the end by getting electrocuted. In the second DLC, The Hideaway, the kid reaches a furnace room and he has to rely on the gnomes to throw coals in the furnace. You can now use the gnomes to help you move stuff, open doors, and pull the levers. His objective is to recruit as many gnomes as possible so they can help him move on to the next area. The DLC ends with the runaway kid witnessing gnomes warming up on the furnace upstairs, and he rides on the top of the elevator with the lady inside. This DLC doesn't have much to offer compared to the other DLCs though. The third and final DLC, The Residence, is where the game goes full Spencer Mansion. The kid happens to be in a different part of the lady's residence, and you have to find statues to place them in this particular room. You go through different rooms where you have to solve puzzles, and the game introduces you to the very first combat mechanic of Little Nightmares. You encounter these masked silhouette children coming after you, and you can kill them by pointing your flashlight towards them. This type of combat works almost the same as the one from Alan Wake. I find it to be a little bit irritating at times, especially at this part where you must rotate this wheel to get out of this room in time, with these shitbirds spawning on you, but that's just one thing, so it's not a big deal. The kid collects and places all the statues, and he approaches the lady who is looking at a normal mirror. That's right, she has such an ugly face in her reflection. This could explain why she was getting knocked by this small mirror used by 6 at the end of the main game. It also helps the fact that the mirrors in her place are all broken. However, it doesn't really explain why the small mirror was the only one who damaged her, because she was looking at this big mirror and it didn't affect her at all. How does this work exactly? You guys have to let me know in the comments. Unfortunately for the runaway kid, he gets caught by the lady and he gets turned into a gnome. The kid ends up in this restaurant with all the hungry guests, and you won't believe where the DLC ends. So yeah, the gnome that 6 ate and killed in the main game was the runaway kid all along. Nobody saw this coming. At least not until the kid turned into a gnome. So yeah, that was Little Nightmares. What a hell of a ride. This game was such a surprise to me because it actually managed to put me in a shock twice in a row. Because as I said in my Evil Within review, I was getting tired of the hide and seek horror genre because they don't offer much replay value, and I am going to be more obsessed with survival horror games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. But with this game and its sequel Little Nightmares 2, I can make an exception, because this IP offers such an incredible lore with balanced puzzles, unique enemy designs, intense moments, and incredible soundtrack. This game is so well made. Unfortunately, Little Nightmares isn't perfect, like all other games, and it does have flaws. First of all, the game is way too short, and you can actually beat this game under 2 hours, as you can see in my recorded files. The DLCs all combined take more than 2 hours compared to the base game, but it's still short. Even though I like this game, it doesn't have much to offer in replays. The second issue is that the twin chefs have weak AI, and they aren't hard to avoid, especially compared to the janitor who is creepier than both of them. Also, the lady has very small screen time, and she serves as the final boss of the game. All she does in the whole game is chasing us through this hallway and have a boss fight with her afterwards. That's it. The game offers only 3 major antagonists: the janitor, the twin chefs, and the lady. The guests and the leeches don't really count in my opinion. The third problem of this game is that most of the puzzles are very easy and kinda exhausting. What you do for the most part is grabbing keys, opening doors, grabbing levers, and lifting stuff. The only puzzle that stuck with me the most was the sausage machine. I enjoyed collecting meat, drop it in the machine, and make a sausage rope to swing towards this vent. I think this is the most memorable puzzle of the game. My final issue with the game is that all the hunger sections in the game kinda kills the pacing of it. I understand that it serves an important purpose to the story, but it is a little bit irritating to go through them during replays nonetheless, because 6 is moving very slow. She has to stop for a few seconds and repeat. Before we end this review, let's make a theory, shall we? So the question is that why did 6 just eat and kill the runaway kid just like that? Especially when there was meat everywhere in the restaurant and she was being offered a fucking sausage. Why him specifically? In my theory, I think 6 ate him so she can gain his memories to learn what the lady was capable of. Because as you can see, 6 managed to absorb her supernatural powers by biting her neck to death. And the runaway kid saw her true identity and what kind of weakness she had. So the kid's memories went into 6's mind when she ate him, thus knowing what she needed to do to defeat the lady. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Overall, Little Nightmares is a fantastic game. There's a lot of things to love about it, like the music, the sound design, the platforming, the lore, and its shocking twists. I won't say it's like a must play for gamers in general, especially if you're not a fan of platforming games. But I think it's worth experiencing this game at least once. With all that being said, let's go to my verdict. So if you are a fan of platforming horror games and you want to experience a show don't tell type of tale, Little Nightmares should definitely be in your backlog. It's not the most revolutionary game ever made, but you are missing out. So don't wait for a discount and buy this game at full price. Thank you guys so much for watching my review on Little Nightmares. If you like what you're seeing here, please consider liking the video, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for more. Hope you guys have a wonderful day and I'll see you in the next video. Farewell.